Good evening, folks, and welcome to another episode of 162 Times, your daily baseball recap and preview show. I'm your host, Daniel Turner. It's great to be with you. This is episode 77. Sevens are wild tonight. And we got a good one for you. So, we have a rubber match between the Guardians and Mariners to recap for you. Happened earlier today from Cleveland, game 3 of 3 in this series. And then the Mariners are going to head down to Florida to start a Florida road trip. They'll be in Miami tomorrow night to take on the Marlins. So we'll try and tee up that series for you on the episode. And of course, we will look around the majors from the Thursday scores, those that have come to be by the point in time that this episode is recorded. We're also going to take a look, because the Mariners are on the road, and I like to do the stadium tour of where they're playing now, Progressive Field, and the different iterations of that field, but also the other places that the Cleveland franchise has played over the years, because I think that stuff is interesting. So let's get the bad news out of the way first. The Mariners were unsuccessful in the rubber match of this series. It was a 6-3 final for the Guardians. I turned it on in about the 6th inning, and Castillo wasn't pitching, so I knew it was a bad sign. The Mariners were down 5-3 at that point. Cleveland added a late home run to make it 6-3. With the win, the Guardians go to 46-26 on the year, 20 games above 500. Good for them. First in the American League Central. The Mariners dropped to 44-33, still first in the American League West. Overall, it was 5 hits for the Mariners for 3 runs. The Guardians had 9 hits for 6 runs. Nobody committed any errors. The starters got the wins and losses. The closer got the save. So it was LT Allen, or Logan Allen, winning his 8th win of the year. He's now 8-3 with a 5.23 ERA. Luis Castillo, 6-8 with a 3.63 ERA. And the save went to Emmanuel Clase, who has 22 saves on the year, and his ERA is .76. So he has been just absolutely dominant this season. In terms of pitching lines, Castillo went 5 innings, gave up 8 hits, 5 runs, all of them earned, 2 walks, 4 Ks, and he also gave up 2 homers. The winning pitcher, Allen, 6 innings, 4 hits, 3 runs, all of them earned, 4 walks, only 2 Ks, and he gave up a homer. Very interesting. In terms of the bullpen report, for the Mariners, it was Saucedo of Tacoma pitching an inning, walking 1. Stanek pitching an inning, walking 1, striking out 2. Neither of them gave up any hits or runs. And then Trent Thornton gave up 1 hit, 1 run, which was off a homer, and he also struck out 2. On the night, Mariners struck out 8 Guardians, and the Guardians only struck out 5 Mariners. Very unusual, frankly. But nonetheless, Cleveland was able to come away with the win. The Cleveland bullpen, it was Herron, Smith, and Clase. None of them gave up any runs, and only Herron gave up a single hit. In terms of how we got there scoring-wise, well, started well for the Mariners. Top of first, it was Dylan Moore, his 8th homer of the year, 2-0 after he brought in J.P. Crawford with 1 swing of the bat. But in the bottom of the first, Cleveland got 1 back, courtesy of a Josh Naylor ground out. He grounded into a double play, but Stephen Kwan was able to score from third, 2-1 Cleveland, 2-1 Seattle at that point. Bottom of second, it was a Will Brennan homer that tied the game. Top of 4, Ryan Bliss doubled in Ty France, made it 3-2. But bottom of 5, here comes Cleveland. Andres Jimenez, home run with Stephen Kwan on base, makes it 4-3. And then Josh Naylor doubled in Jose Ramirez in the same inning, 5-3 Cleveland. And it was the second Will Brennan homer of the game, his 8th of the year, that made it a 6-3 final in the bottom of the 8th. That was off Trent Thornton. Cleveland was 2 for 6 with runners in scoring position. They only left 4 on base. Mariners were 1 for 5, and they left 5 on base, and they grounded into 3 double plays. Garver, Locklear, and Moore all grounded into double plays. The starting lineup was Crawford, Moore, Rodriguez, Garver catching, Ty DHing, Haniger, Locklear, Robles, and Bliss. Rojas, Raley, and Raleigh ultimately came in as pinch hitters. So, interesting use of the lineup there for Mr. Service. All those pinch hits were late in the game. Stephen Kwan's average is now .396 on the season. because he was 1 for 3 on the night, but he did have 2 runs, a walk, and a strikeout. He is truly a phenomenal player. Will Brennan, great night, 3 for 4, 2 runs, 2 ribbies. On the Mariners side, Dylan Moore, 1 for 3, 1 run, 1 RBI. Ryan Bliss had the other RBI. Not a great night for anyone on the Mariners squad. So, we're going to flush it and forget it. A great start to that series in Cleveland, but it did not continue on. So before we start thinking about Miami, let's talk a little bit more about the Cleveland Guardians. I must say, in this series, they wore their, I want to call them, they are their City Connects. They're basically white pants with a dark blue top, short sleeve, obviously short sleeve, but it's like a pullover style. And sorry, it has buttons, but it just has a big CLE for Cleveland on the front, and I actually think it kind of works. Otherwise, during this series, they wore their alternate red Guardians getup, and I also thought that was really pretty solid. So Cleveland's been around forever as a major league franchise. In fact, there's been baseball there since the mid 1800s, but organized like professional baseball starting in the Western League, which ended up becoming the American League. There was a team called the Columbus Buckeyes in 1896. Then there was the Columbus Senators from 1897 to 99. The Grand Rapids Furniture Makers in 1899. What a name. Then it was the Cleveland Lakeshores for 1 year in 1900. The Cleveland Bluebirds in 1901. The Cleveland Bronchos. It's like Broncos, but with an H, in 1902. Then they had star Nap Lajoie. So his full name was Napoleon Lajoie, for those who can pronounce like French names. But in America, he was known as Nap Lajoie. He's one of the inaugural Hall of Fame inductees, a great player. And so from 1903 to 1914, they actually named the team the Cleveland Napoleons, or the Naps, because of his greatness and popularity. Okay. And then from 1915 to 2021, the Cleveland team was, of course, known as the Cleveland Indians, also sometimes known as the Tribe, or the Wahoos, after their longtime logo, Chief Wahoo. Obviously, all that was inherently racist, and they went through a process of choosing a new name in 2022. And they ended up coming up with Guardians, which is a reference to these 2 great big Art Deco statues on a bridge in Cleveland that are called the Guardians of Traffic, which is kind of hilarious in its own right, because the statues are epic and cool, and Art Deco is cool, but traffic is not. Anyway, other possible names were the Spiders, because the Cleveland Spiders were a team. When they were also nicknamed the Blues, they were kind of also known as the Spiders. All right. So they've been around since 1896. They've only won 2 World Series in 1920 and 1948. They have made the World Series a number of times, 95, 97, and 2016, at least recently, and they've won their division quite a lot. Generally speaking, either a kind of a bad franchise or a good franchise. They've had some great players: Nap Lajoie, Bob Feller, Jim Thome. I'm blanking on others, but they've had some good players over the years. In terms of where they've played, well, they've been around forever. So they played at a place called Recreation Park 2. Which was located in Columbus, Ohio. Obviously, that was when they were the Columbus Buckeyes. Then they played in Ramona Park, also in Columbus. That's in East Grand Rapids. And this was an amusement park, but it also had a baseball park. Then, from 1900 to 1946, with a slight interruption, they played at a place called League Park in Cleveland, Ohio, which basically is a square block with some bleachers around it. From 1932 to 1933, they played at Cleveland Stadium, or was also known as Cleveland Municipal Stadium or Lakefront Stadium. And they also played there from 1937 to 1993. So they played there for a heck of a long time. Municipal Stadium. That would have seen their last World Series victory in 1948. Many of Bob Feller's great exploits on the pitching mound would have been from there. Then in 1994, they moved into a new field called Progressive Field in Cleveland. This was initially known as Jacobs Field and affectionately known as the Jake. I still think of it as the Jake because when I was a kid, I always thought that was a really cool name for a stadium, and I wanted to learn more about other names for stadiums. But in recent times, since I don't know, they must have renamed it fairly recently, but it's now Progressive Field, and it was a relatively new renaming. And so that's where the games have been going on in this particular series. And one of the distinguishing features of the Jake or Progressive Field is the 19-foot wall that runs from center field to left field. And in this series, there have been quite a lot of high fly balls that probably would have gone out in other ballparks, but at the Jake or Progressive Field, they hit the top of that or near the top of that 19-foot wall and stay in play. So, very, very cool. That'll do it for our coverage regarding Cleveland and the Guardians, and we'll say good riddance to those guys because, aside from that first game, the Mariners have been outclassed throughout. So we're going to preview a little bit of the upcoming Mariners and Marlins series. So this is an interleague matchup on the road. Marlins are not going to make the playoffs this year. They sold their best player earlier this season. That was Luis Arraez. I think their best pitcher is Sandy Alcantara, who may have won the Cy Young a little while ago. But if I'm not mistaken, he is on the injured list this season. So in Game 1, which will happen on Friday night at 7:10 p.m. Eastern from Lone Depot Park in Miami, a game which you can catch on Bally Sports Florida or Root Sports Northwest, George Kirby will take the hill for the Mariners with his 3-5 record and 3.54 ERA and 84 Ks on the year. He'll be going up against Trevor Rogers, whose middle name is Jadaniel, J''Daniel. He's from Carlsbad, New Mexico. He's the 13th overall pick of the Marlins in 2017. His career record is 14-31, and this year he's 1-8 with a 5.09 ERA in 14 starts. He's got 55 strikeouts in 69 innings pitched, and his WHIP is 1.62. This guy is a lefty, so we should see a lot of righties in the lineup for the Mariners with the exception of J.P. Crawford. On the Miami side of things for this first matchup, we get a sense of some of the guys that they have on their team. Tim Anderson, Jay Bell, Jake Berger, Jazz Chisholm, Brian Dela Cruz. Not a lot of household names there. I'd say Tim Anderson's probably the only guy I'm very familiar with. So that'll be Game 1. The Marlins are going to be, they may be playing tonight, but they're 25-49 right now. So it's a pretty terrible record, and they've had a pretty bad season. In Game 2, it's going to be Logan Gilbert for the Mariners. He's 4-4, 2.93 ERA, went 8 innings in his last start. He's been outstanding, 93 strikeouts so far this season. He'll be going up against Jesus Luzardo, another lefty, 26-year-old, third-round pick of the Nationals in 2016, 26-34 record overall, 3-6 this year, 5.00 ERA in 12 games, 58 strikeouts in 66 innings pitched, 1.25 WHIP. So his numbers are slightly better than Trevor Rogers, but not exactly solid numbers either. And then in the finale, which will be at 1:40 Eastern on Sunday, June 23rd, it'll be Bryce Big Tex Miller, 6-5, 3.46 ERA, and 82 Ks so far this season, going up against Braxton Garrett, 26-year-old lefty. 3 lefties they'll be facing. He's from Foley, Alabama. He was a 7th overall pick by Miami in 2016. Career regular season record of 16 and 19. This year he's 2-2 with a 5.34 ERA in 7 starts, 34 strikeouts in 37 innings pitched, and a 1.19 WHIP. So he's got the best numbers, although in a limited sample size of any of the Mariners pitching that they will be facing. And the boys will have to give it a good go. In terms of the Marlins stats so far this year, Brian Dela Cruz, their DH, has 13 homers and 34 RBI. Jazz Chisholm has 10 homers and 36 RBI. Josh Bell, not Jay Bell, 7 homers, 32 ribbies. Jesus Sanchez, 6 homers, 28 ribbies. Jake Berger, 6 homers, 24 ribbies. Nick Gordon, 6 homers, 24 ribbies. You know, not superstar numbers. Chisholm's got the most hits at 72. In terms of batting average, Chisholm's batting 266, Bell's 247, Dela Cruz is 245. OPS numbers are, they got 3 guys who kind of have one above or around 7. So that's not maybe their biggest problem. I'm going to check out, let's see, their pitching. So, their top strikeout guy is Ryan Weathers with 67. That's not a lot compared to, the Mariners have elite starters, so it is what it is. And in terms of, innings pitched, Ryan Weathers, who we won't see this series, Trevor Rogers and Jesus Luzardo are the leaders on their team, so they're probably their, best pitchers. But I'm not seeing a whole lot of really good stats outside of that Ryan Weathers guy. It's a 3.5 ERA. Their wins leader is Tanner Scott, another pitcher who we're not going to see. Actually, Tanner Scott, he is a reliever, and his numbers are decent. So I think it's more the pitching than it is the other statistics. Miami is at the bottom of the home run hitting category out of all teams in the majors, for example, which is really, really poor. So I just think all around they're not a very good team, and hopefully the Mariners can do well against them. They did well against the White Sox in a similar situation recently. Okay, last thing before we let you go today, we got to go around the league and check out the scoreboard. And we'll just quickly go back to last night and see how those games... So the Astros did end up beating the White Sox 4-1 on Wednesday night, and the Brewers finished off the Angels 2-0. The Athletics ended up beating the Royals 5-1. Good for them. The Rangers did hold off the Mets, and it was a 5-3 final there. So Mariners probably 9 games up in the division now on both Texas and Houston. As of today, 2 games still in play. So the Giants and the Cardinals. Cardinals are up 5-3 at home in the top of the 5th. And the Padres and the Brewers will play ball at 9:40 tonight. So they haven't even started yet. In terms of games that have concluded, it is a Thursday, so there were only 9 games overall in the majors. The Diamondbacks were 5-2 winners over the Washington Nationals. The Rays, in 10 innings, beat the Twins 7-6, and that was in Minnesota. The Astros beat the White Sox again, 5-3. Not a huge surprise, still disappointing. The Dodgers beat the Rockies 5-3. The Royals beat the Athletics 3-2. Just squeaking by the Athletics, Kansas City? And then the Orioles spanked the Yankees. Statement game against Luis Gil. Wow. 17-5, your final. 19 hits for the Orioles, 6 hits for the Yankees, 3 errors for the Yankees. And that was Luis Gil's second loss of the year. He's 9-2 with a 2.77 ERA. You may recall he pitched the finale of the 4-gamer the Mariners played against the Yankees at Yankee Stadium a little while back and was dominant. So for the Orioles to have scored 17 runs against that Yankees team is a bit of a statement game right there. I think the O's did quite well in that series overall. All right, folks, we're almost at the weekend. We wish you all the best. We look forward to watching the Marlins tomorrow night. We hope we can just kind of shake off Cleveland. See you later, Cleveland. We're going on to bigger and better things.